Would you ever tell a leopard to change her spots? No, because number one, that's absurd, and number two, hindering the animal's ability to protect themselves with camouflage would ultimately harm the animal, as she was born with them. Would you ever tell a walrus to go on a diet? Again, number one, that's absurd because the animal was born with the body that it has. And number two, trying to limit and constrict the animal's eating would ultimately harm and kill the animal. The thing that sets these two animals apart from all the other animals in the animal kingdom are these small characteristics and factors about them, making them both unique and original, beautiful in their own way, set apart from every other animal. So let me tell you this. Without these small individual factors giving into the animal's uniqueness and originality, they'd be no different than any other animal. Now, when we look in society, let me ask you this. Why do we feel like it's perfectly justified to tell young children, just 2 and 3 years of age, that there's something inherently wrong with them? If we wouldn't tell the animal to change itself, why would we tell small children who are just coming into their sense of self-identity and self-worth that there's something inherently uncultured or undesirable about them, something they were born with, whether it be their hair, their skin, their cultural identity, their mannerisms? Why do we feel like in our society it's justified to tell anybody that there's anything wrong with them that has to be fixed? Though, as young children, we may not realize and recognize the small taunts and teases that adults in society throw at us, all too often, these remarks and taunts and teases about who we are as individuals follow us later on into our lives, and they impact us into adolescence. And all too often, these negative self-image flaws follow us into a condition we more commonly know today as body dysmorphic disorder. So, we're posed with a question today: why should we care about the effects of BBD in our society? So to understand body dysmorphic disorder, we have to look first at what it's doing to our nation as a society, what it's going to continue to do if we don't fix the root problem, and lastly, what's going to happen for us to fix body dysmorphic disorder, and how can we make a more inclusive society for everybody? To start off with, BBD, body dysmorphic disorder, affects 1 in 50 people, according to the IOCDF. Now, at first, this may not seem significant, but when we actually look at how it affects individuals, both men and women, we'll see that it has a much bigger impact in society as a whole. A 2017 study done by the Spoon University showed that out of taking a study group of 12,000 men and women who were tested and asked questions about their personal self-image, they found that of all those women and men, and even 50% of that entire group of men and women said they were highly dissatisfied to severely dissatisfied about their body image and their overall physique. Going on, the same study concluded that although in our society that we may not seem to think that men and women are both equally affected by these mental barriers of their physicality, both men and women are equally affected and subconscious about themselves. So we already know with this study being present that men and women are equally affected by BBD. So why is it that we don't see equal change going on for both men and women? Going on, the same study proved that unlike women who are able to openly discuss their feelings, men typically have barriers that keep them bound. And these barriers are the societal norms that state that men are inherently not supposed to discuss their feelings openly. It's these toxic traits of masculinity in which you cannot discuss your feelings or emotions that cause men to bottle up and suppress their feelings inside, causing more self-doubt about themselves. According to the CDC, women are 48% more likely to recover from body dysmorphic disorder simply because they have openness and a strong support group in case something happens, and they can talk about their feelings, whereas men typically do not. So first of all, we see that there's a problem between men and women who is being helped and affected, and we also see that it's affecting everybody equally. So how does it affect people in their day-to-day lives? People with body dysmorphic disorder are said to have been very retractive. They feel blocked mentally because of this beast of self-conscience, which causes them to retract from social settings, feeling almost unworthy of human social interaction and attention because there's something inherently wrong with them. In terms of how they affect women, women typically retract from social settings They stop being as physically affectionate and emotionally open with their significant partners and family members. And for men, it typically exhibits itself in bottling up rage, causing erratic behavior. And this erratic behavior ends up manifesting itself in sexual prowess issues and overall narcissistic tendencies. Now, for people who typically have predispositions to things like sexual trauma as youth and natural overall irritability when it comes to their mental state, body dysmorphic disorder can affect them more heavily. But at the end of the day, we realize that there are many factors that play into BBD victims. So, moving on. What's going to happen if we do not tackle the root problem of BBD right now in our society? Let me paint you a picture. Imagine that every day you came home after a long day of school and your family had lunch together or dinner, and you saw every day after dinner your older sister was going to her bedside crying because of her body fat. Imagine that every day after dinner you saw that your mother, who didn't really eat much to begin with, went days and days only eating a salad, wasting away, and behind her smiles and her confirmation that she was okay, you knew that something just wasn't right. Imagine that every day you witnessed your older brothers going on mile-long runs and training for hours and hours, vigorously trying to maintain their physique, all in the name of health, but you realized that they were really hurting behind all those bandaged wounds, arms and ankles. You knew that this was not okay, this was not good, and they were really in pain. This would be the reality that thousands of American men and women would conform to if we do not tackle the problem of BBD here and now in our society. Going on, a research test conducted by the Anxiety and Depression Association studied a group of men and women equally to the Spoon University test, and they discovered that when it comes to the different age demographics, typically those affected with BBD exhibit their first symptoms when they're young. Of course, adolescents, typically teenagers between the ages of 13 through 18. And of course, once you're 13 through 18, it's very evident if you're going to have BBD or not. And the social retraction, as well as feelings of self-doubt, are very evident in our society, and they're only going to continue to be more evident if we do not tackle the problem. According to the Washington Post, they stated that if we do not tackle BBD here and now, by the year 2050, cases in BBD have been seen to double. What does this mean? Well, first of all, according to the CDC, body dysmorphic disorder is a predicator to many other underlying health conditions, including many eating disorders and ultimately, in more severe cases, suicide. Eating disorders such as, for example, anorexia, feed heavily into BBD and a perceived flaw that something inherently is wrong. So, if we do not tackle this problem here and now, thousands of American citizens are going to suffer at the hands of the societal beast. Now, what can we do ultimately to fix body dysmorphic disorder? And how can we stop this mental beast and this crisis in its tracks? We have to understand that at the heart of this problem, there's always a perceived flaw that something inherently has to be changed. And we realize this is false. For our society to have a more inclusive and open space for people to discuss their problems, we have to realize there's nothing wrong with people, because just like the cheetah and the leopard with their beautiful spots, or the walrus with its body, everyone has something unique that they can contribute to society that nobody else has. And there's no perceived flaw because every one of us are unique individuals. If we're going to have societal change for both men and women, young and old, we have to have inclusivity to realize that these different features are what make us the beautiful grand society in America that we have today. The problem being, according to Psychology Today, it was discovered that after a test was conducted, over 28% of individuals stated that they felt like body dysmorphic disorder was just a farce. They don't believe that this is a real condition, but it's just being too self-conscious. And with this being the case, if we're going to have radicalized change in our society for our brothers and sisters, we have to just tackle the problem, that it's not something that's just fake. This is a real condition that needs to be addressed. At the end of the day, everybody is behind our American brothers and sisters that are suffering with this condition. But we need to have more inclusivity and realize that this is an open space. We are with you 100%. And we all must realize that just like, again, the walrus with her beautiful body or the cheetah with its spots, every aspect of ourselves build and shape what society is today. Thank you.